Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, and it is time for a preview of the 2023 US Open men's final between Novak Djokovic and Daniil Medvedev, a rematch of 2021. I'm fired up for this final. I take issue with anybody who feels disappointed coming into this final, and you know that I love Djokovic Alcaraz as much as anybody, and their matches have been fantastic, and their rivalry has really defined the second half of 2023. And yes, it would have been a great cherry on top of, to have Djokovic and Alcaraz play for a third straight major and see who wins to kind of break the 1-1 tie. I get all that. But Djokovic Medvedev is a really, really fantastic head-to-head in its own right. One that has probably been, since 2019, the best hardcourt rivalry in all of men's tennis. And there's a lot of reasons to be super pumped up for this one. In fact, when we were going into the semifinals, part of me was almost wishing, once again, and I know we had this at Wimbledon, where most people agree that if the head-to-heads were flipped, it might have been closer matches, closer semifinals. I was wondering, coming into the semifinals, God, I kind of wish Djokovic and Medvedev were playing because we hadn't seen it in a while. We saw it in Dubai, but I feel like Novak was far from full strength in that match. It's been a long time since we've seen it at a major. Not since the US Open final in 2021 have Djokovic and Medvedev played in a major. And by the way, when they have played in a major, they haven't really played a great match because Djokovic won in straight sets over Medvedev in the Australian Open final in 21, and then Medvedev won in straights in New York. So as many awesome matches as they've played, and there have been a lot of them, none of them have actually played out in best of five, which is one of the reasons I'm really excited to see this, because I think chances are we will get that competitive Djokovic-Medvedev match that I think this rivalry deserves in a major. It's also a legacy-defining moment for Medvedev. There have been a lot of guys, obviously, who have won one slam on the men's side, even more on the women's, but you know what I'm saying. A lot on the men's side, from Dominic Thiem to Marin Cilic to Juan Martín del Potro. And when you get that second, it's a big deal. It really kind of changes the way you're looked at from a legacy standpoint. So that's massive for Medvedev, I think, in just how we're going to view him as a player legacy-wise. I've been wanting to see this matchup on hardcourt all year long. All right? Matchup history, 9-5. 9-5 edge for Djokovic. But a pretty complex kind of ebb and flow to their history. Djokovic beat Medvedev a couple times, 3 times, before Medvedev was a top 15 player. A couple times, 2017, 2019. Then summer of 2019, first actually Medvedev beat Djokovic in Monte Carlo in 2019. Then he beat him in Cincinnati. Djokovic in 2020 won what was the best 3-set match that I've seen in the last 3 years, probably even better than it quality-wise, start to finish, better than Djokovic Alcaraz in Cincinnati. That was the 2020 ATP Cup. That was the Djokovic win over Medvedev. And then Medvedev came back and beat Novak at the year-end championships in 2020. So there was a stretch where Medvedev won 3 out of 4 matches against Novak, and the one match Novak won was a really, really close, epic 3-setter. There was a lot of reasons at that point to think, okay, Medvedev is a bit of a problem for Djokovic from a matchup standpoint. But come the Australian Open in 2021, Djokovic changed what he was doing against Daniil. Because that stretch of 4 matches that I'm talking about, what those matches were 2 absolute indestructible titans from the baseline going toe-to-toe. And while that was incredibly entertaining for us viewers, Novak figured out it's really not the best way to play against Medvedev. It wasn't really taking advantage of what Djokovic does better than Daniil. And come the Australian Open in 2021, Novak changed course and brought a much more aggressive mindset to the court, decided to play much less from neutral, avoid neutrality with ruthless baseline aggression, with his forehand, with net rushing. Ultimately, come the Paris Masters in 2021, we'd see a lot of serve and volley. Djokovic would implement more and more drop shots into his game against Daniil Medvedev, and he would do everything he could in subsequent matchups to avoid the monotonous physical baseline battle that, yes, Djokovic does well, but Medvedev does just as well, and you would get these highly physical kind of 50-50 matches. Novak was able to turn the screw and get the better of the head-to-head and win 5 out of 6 meetings after changing that tactic. Now, the one loss for Djokovic was the U.S. Open in 2021, where Novak was just cooked mentally and physically from a 5-set semifinal against Zverev, from going 4 sets over and over and over and over again throughout that U.S. Open leading up to the semifinal, because he was kind of constantly tight because of how much history was on the line. Plus, it was an Olympic year, and he went to Tokyo and just was not really in good shape at that point. And Medvedev is the worst player you can play when you don't have legs. The worst. So that was kind of a good stretch for Djokovic, 5 of 6. They played earlier this year in Dubai, and Medvedev won it. It is not a match. He won it 6-4, 6-4. Novak, to me, was kind of just not in great physical shape compared to, and you know, some people take issue when I say that. You got to understand, Novak, he peaks for slams. His fitness is no longer always at a 10 out of 10. That doesn't mean that he is not taking care of his body. He does that 365 days a year. I get that. I totally get that. But his fitness levels are not the same in February after resting post Australia that they are going to be during majors. You know, it's not. And he has said that over and over and over again. So that match was a match where Djokovic was incredibly inconsistent, unforced errors up the wazoo, just trying to point shorten desperately from the back of the court. So I thought Djokovic was really bad, and it was a big win for Medvedev, that win. Don't get me wrong. I think it gave Daniil's game was starting to turn, and Daniil was starting to play really, really well at that point in the year. And he was even coming off of a Rotterdam title, I believe, if I have the sequencing in my head right. But I thought that was the win over Novak to at least mentally give Daniil all of the reinforcement he needed to feel really, really good about himself. And that set up a pretty successful sunshine double for Medvedev as well, where he was able to win Miami. So, good win for Medvedev. Not a match that I read into much. It's not a match that I'm going back to and I'm looking at what Medvedev did and I'm considering, oh, how could that play into this one? Honestly, it's just not. It just wasn't Novak at what we're gonna see Novak here. That's all I'll say. All right, won't dwell on it anymore. That is the head-to-head history, right? Pretty complicated, pretty interesting stuff. Now I'll talk about what I think both players need to do to win before I give my prediction. Djokovic path to victory. Aggressive with the forehand, live at the net, finish with touch. That's what he's been doing to Medvedev with success ever since he realized that this guy is no joke from the back of the court, and he better be the aggressor if he wants to have success against Daniil. Again, the forehand finishing through the court with power is always going to be a factor when it comes to Djokovic's ability to point shorten, but it's also serve and volley, coming forward behind those big forehands, incorporating the drop shot. Obviously, once he's in, finish well with drop volleys. And all of those things worked really well for Alcaraz in the semifinal. It's not the reason Alcaraz lost to Medvedev. Those things worked well. Worked well for de Minaur in the first set against Medvedev, right? So those things will continue to work, but it's important that you also stay competitive from the back. This is what Alcaraz wasn't able to do. Medvedev was the far better player from the baseline and won a good chunk of the points, good percentage of the points. Novak needs to hope, well, okay, I'm going to have both aspects here. I'm going to have my serve and volley success and my drop shot success and my net finishing behind my +1, and I'm going to have my ability to finish against Medvedev's defense using my tools. But also, when I'm in the back of the court, I'm going to be much less erratic than Alcaraz was, and therefore I am going to at least keep it competitive from the back, 50-50 or something like that. The next thing to look out for is Djokovic's scrambling. I always think that this was a huge factor. This can be a big factor in Medvedev matches, especially in big Medvedev matches, is are there moments where he's losing from offensive positions because he's not able to do what I just talked about Djokovic being able to do, which is finish with touch and finish with the transition game. So, and honestly, it's what doomed Medvedev. It's what lost Medvedev the third set against Alcaraz in the semifinal. Is against the best defenders and the fastest players like Djokovic is, like Alcaraz is. Oftentimes, it's going to take a couple of extra volleys to get it done. And Daniil has struggled to sometimes execute those extra volleys. And that usually becomes a factor in a couple of points where Medvedev has short balls and he just can't get the finish because he either came forward and butchered the volley or he decided to stay back and he got neutralized. Either of those things can happen. And it's something that Djokovic, with his defensive skills, is going to look to take advantage of. Pressuring Medvedev's second serve, I think that's going to once again come into play. This is another area where Djokovic is better than Alcaraz. I think he, especially on the forehand side, he hits the ball cleaner when he's taking it early. Not that Alcaraz is bad at it, but Novak is better. And I do think he will stand in. He'll choose safe targets. He'll probably go deep middle more often than not. But we know what Novak does on second serves that aren't high quality. He will smoke them right at your feet and take control of the point. Medvedev's second serve has looked shaky, continues to look shaky. There have been double faults. There have been kind of weaker, slower second serves at times. And then oftentimes when Medvedev is trying to... Daniil is so smart, he's so savvy, that usually he understands when that's happening. And if it continues to happen, he will go big, likely, on the second serve. And when he goes big, that's where I think Novak needs to say, okay, go big, you'll double fault here. So I'm just going to kind of cut my losses. And also, there's a chance that Djokovic, because of how good he is at reacting and shortening up swings, that he's able to potentially still kind of make good wood on the ball, even if Medvedev is hitting, is mixing in his 115 or 120 mile per hour second serves. There's also a world in which that happens. I think Novak needs to break out of the backhand and backhand exchange effectively. There are a lot of ways he can do that, but he needs to make sure, I think, that he doesn't get too comfortable there because Medvedev can beat him backhand to backhand. And it's not that Daniil's better backhand to backhand, but if they're going to get into that exchange often, it's probably going to play into how Medvedev wants the match to be, Backhand slice, backhand drop shot, run around forehand, pulling it inside in. I don't think it's smart to run around your forehand and hit inside out against Daniil. Usually that's where he just redirects his backhand down the line and you're in trouble. But I think, looking for opportunities to run around and hit your forehand inside in is a good thing. And obviously the backhand down the line is also a way to break out of the backhand and backhand. So I do think that Djokovic will not hit a lot of cross-court backhands on the ad side in a row. I'm not saying, obviously he's going to hit some, but I don't think he's going to hit 3-4 cross-court backhands in a row. I think he'll try to avoid that, and I think that would be wise. So those are my keys to Novak, or for Novak. For Medvedev, first of all, what he's done so well at this U.S. Open, all these matches, he's applying quite a bit of pressure off the ground without missing very much. And the way he does that is he takes the ball early. I know it sounds counterintuitive for Medvedev, but it's really not. Daniil will return from deep. Daniil will defend from deep. But then when he has good control in a baseline rally, he is willing to stay close to the baseline. He's very able to do that. And he has been doing that. He'll take the ball early and he'll play down the line. And he doesn't need to crush the ball for that to be a damaging shot, especially when he hits it flat and it skids through the court and it stays low, which kind of increases the offensive effectiveness of that kind of shot. So I think, he needs to keep the aggressive baselining going, but when he doesn't have a chance to be aggressive, he's also found a lot of success of just keeping the ball on Novak's backhand and also covering the drop shot. So keep it on the backhand, cover the drop shot, and that's how he can lengthen rallies. So just like Djokovic won't be wanting to hit a lot of backhands cross-court, Medvedev won't be wanting to hit a lot of forehands cross-court. I think Medvedev will go forehand line as much as possible because he wants Novak to hit backhands. That's where, if he keeps it on Djokovic's backhand, Novak's going to have trouble shortening the points. That's where it's going to get physical. That's where Novak's going to have trouble getting forward and finishing at net. And we get kind of the baseline battle that Medvedev wants it to be. So it's all about finding a way to get Novak to stay back and trade and making this match physical. Keeping it on his backhand is a way to do that. But also, you got to maintain depth in rally. You got to come up with some passing shots, plain and simple, to make Djokovic think twice about coming forward. Remember, Novak in his nature is not a net rusher. A little bit different than Alcaraz, where it really is his nature to come forward. So if you pass him enough, you might deter him from coming forward. And I think you also got to try to earn your way into those tight moments. It kind of comes back to the same thing. When you take somebody who's kind of made a career from staying back for the most part, in tight moments, that's where most players go to their habits. And look, maybe Novak will really stay true to whatever his game plan is, regardless of the situation. But for Medvedev, there's a chance that he might have a little bit more of a passive baselining Djokovic in the tight moments. Medvedev needs to work his way into those moments. That takes a lot of hard work. You got to play well to earn that. But if he earns that, I think it's something to look out for. Free points battle is always interesting. It's something that Medvedev usually excels in. Sometimes Djokovic has been able to take that away from him. Alcaraz was able to take that away from him at Indian Wells and at Wimbledon, but then he wasn't at this U.S. Open. Medvedev seems to be serving really well. The serve was huge against de Minaur. It was massive, especially in the second set where Daniil hit a stretch where his serve just wasn't coming back. It was amazing serving. And then he really really flipped the match. Against Rublev, unbelievably clutch first serves by Medvedev. That really helped him, especially down break point oftentimes. And against Alcaraz, it certainly helped him a lot. So the serve has been there as a positive, as a plus for Medvedev every match coming in. And it seems like that would probably need to be the case again if he's going to win this final. Prediction. What makes this hard is that Medvedev has shown a lot more. Daniil has had three wins that I really respect at the very highest level. If you look at the power rankings, for example, I have him, getting through number 2 in the power rankings, number 8 in the power rankings, and one guy who's next out in De Minaur. Novak beat one guy in the next out of the power rankings, which is Fritz. So he's definitely been tested more. We've definitely seen more. And that hasn't been the case with Novak. Plus, Medvedev is good enough to force Novak to leave his comfort zone. Djokovic, arguably against Medvedev, can't just really do his thing and win like he can against 99% of players. That's how good Medvedev is. He's in that very, very tiny group of players that actually will make Djokovic come out here and do some things that aren't really always his plan A. That said, Djokovic has some more well-rounded competencies that have been important in their recent matchup since Novak kind of came out with a better plan against Medvedev. And the fact is, I don't think Daniil has beaten Djokovic near his best since 2020. And that's a long time. That is a long time. The argument, obviously, on the Medvedev side is, Daniil wasn't at his best for all of 2022, so you throw those out the window. And Paris-Bercy was after the U.S. Open, so, you kind of chuck that out. And I don't know. There are things that can be said, but I do feel like the head-to-head is really, in context, skewed towards Djokovic in a big way. Ultimately, I'm pretty torn on this one. So the tiebreaker goes to Novak's greatness. It's, simple as that. It's not all that much about some kind of path of logic that really has me convinced that Novak is going to win. But in this kind of 50-50 where I can actually see it, a lot of different things happening, and I think Medvedev is going to really have a chance to win here, and Novak obviously will have a really good chance to win here. Yeah, the tiebreaker is just that Djokovic is so great that normally it's him coming through these matches, and it's as simple as that. So my prediction is Djokovic in 5. Hope it's a great final, and hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.